The cafe was quiet in that soft, late afternoon way when the rush had passed and only a few people remained. Sunlight filtered through the tall glass windows, painting long golden lines across the wooden floor. The smell of fresh coffee and baked bread hung warmly in the air. At a corner table near the window sat a man in an expensive suit, his jacket draped over the chair beside him. His watch alone cost more than most people's yearly salary. He was a well-known millionaire, though no one in the cafe seemed to recognize him at that moment. He stared at his phone, his expression tired, distracted, and distant. His name was Ethan Cole, a man who had everything money could buy but very little that money could not. His days were filled with meetings, numbers, and decisions that affected thousands of lives, yet his own heart felt strangely empty. He had stopped coming to places like this long ago, but today he needed silence, somewhere neutral, somewhere no one expected anything from him. Across the cafe, near the counter, stood a little girl no older than 8. Her hair was tied into 2 uneven ponytails, and she wore a faded blue dress that had been washed too many times. In her small hands, she clutched a worn-out stuffed toy, a little brown bear with one button eye missing and a torn seam along its arm. She looked around nervously, biting her lower lip, as if gathering courage. Her eyes landed on Ethan. She hesitated, took a step forward, then stopped. The cafe felt big to her, full of adults who looked busy and important. But something about the man by the window felt different. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't scary either. He looked lonely. Finally, she walked up to his table. "Mister," she said softly. Ethan barely heard her at first. He was scrolling through emails when the small voice broke through the noise in his head. He looked up, slightly annoyed at being interrupted, until he saw her. The little girl stood there, holding the battered toy tightly against her chest, her eyes hopeful and scared at the same time. "Yes," he replied, his tone gentler than he expected. She lifted the toy toward him with both hands. "Can you fix my toy?" Her voice trembled. "It was our last gift from Dad." The words hit him harder than any business loss ever had. Ethan stared at the toy, then at the girl. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. He had no idea how to fix toys. He could buy 100 new ones, hire the best craftsman in the city, but fix it himself. That wasn't his world. I'm not sure I can," he said honestly. The girl's shoulders drooped, but she didn't pull the toy back. "It's okay," she said quickly, forcing a small smile. "I just thought, maybe." Something inside Ethan shifted. He gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit down for a moment," he said. "What's your name?" "Lily," she replied, sitting carefully, as if afraid she might break something just by being there. "And your dad?" Ethan asked gently. Lily's fingers tightened around the bear. "He used to come here with Mom sometimes," she said. "He fixed things. Toys, chairs, radios, anything." Her eyes dropped. "But he got sick. He's gone now." Ethan swallowed. He remembered hospitals, the smell of antiseptic, the sound of machines. His own father had died years ago, but money had softened that loss with distractions. For Lily, there were no distractions, only memories stitched into an old toy. "May I see it?" Ethan asked. Lily carefully placed the bear on the table. Up close, Ethan could see how much it had been loved. The fabric was thin in places, the stitching uneven. This toy had been hugged, cried into, slept with. It wasn't just a toy, it was a piece of her father. Ethan looked around the cafe. "Do you mind waiting a little?" he asked. "I might know someone who can help." Lily nodded eagerly. Ethan stood and walked to the counter, speaking quietly with the cafe manager. A few minutes later, an older man emerged from the back. He wore an apron and had kind eyes and rough hands, the hands of someone who had worked with tools all his life. "This is Mr. Harris," Ethan told Lily. "He used to repair things before he retired. He's agreed to help us." Mr. Harris smiled warmly at Lily. "Let's see what we can do, young lady." They moved to a small table near the back. Mr. Harris pulled a small sewing kit from a drawer, needle, thread, tiny scissors. Ethan watched closely as the old man worked carefully, explaining each step to Lily. Ethan found himself leaning in, strangely invested. "Would you like to help?" Mr. Harris asked Ethan. Ethan blinked. "Me? Why not?" Mr. Harris said with a grin. Ethan hesitated, then took the needle when it was offered. His hands were clumsy at first, fingers unused to such delicate work. Lily watched him with wide eyes, as if he were performing magic. "That's good," she said softly. Dad used to say fixing things takes patience. Ethan smiled, a real smile, the kind he hadn't felt in years. After some time, the bear was whole again. The torn seam was stitched, and Mr. Harris had even replaced the missing button eye with a matching one. It wasn't perfect, but it was better, stronger. Lily hugged the toy tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "You're welcome," he said. As Lily and her mother prepared to leave, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. He handed it to Lily's mom. "If you ever need help," he said quietly, "call me." She looked at the card, then at him, surprised. "Thank you," she said, unsure but grateful. When they left, the cafe felt different. Warmer, lighter. Ethan sat back down at his table, his phone forgotten. For the first time in a long while, his heart felt full, not because of money or success, but because he had fixed something that truly mattered. And as he finished his coffee, he realized that sometimes, the smallest requests carry the biggest meanings, and sometimes, fixing a broken toy can begin to fix a broken soul.